the ability to offer a pretty large portfolio for my daughter in 15, 20 years, 30 years, that'll be worth $30 million, in theory, would be generational. I wouldn't advise people buying Section 8 if you're only going to buy 3 to 4 of them. It becomes problematic from a cash flow standpoint. But if you can buy 10 plus each home, I'm averaging about 21% cash flow on all my homes. We can underwrite a home about 20 to 30 minutes before. Now we can do it in 45 seconds through AI. Because we get a lot of these sellers are like telling us, like, you guys are way more complicated, make this harder than everybody else. I'm like, oh, everybody else is a 72%. Fuck you. Like, we don't have that lack of success. Our track record's better, so go show me somebody else that has the track record we have from a return standpoint, or at least I can speak to myself, and then I'll listen to their process.
Welcome to the Captain Curt Show. I'm your host, Curt Marker, where we talk business, real estate, and building wealth that anybody can achieve a financial freedom lifestyle. All right, welcome back to this week's episode of the Captain Curt Show. I'm here with my good friend and office mate, actually, Nate Leathers, and we're going to talk about entrepreneurship, real estate, and flying. So welcome to the show, Nate.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. This is actually the podcast studio that Nate and Dakota built, so it's a super professional studio, and I love getting to use it. So let's get started. So I know you as an entrepreneur, but let's go back to like your younger age, your younger days of working. Sure. We all start working kind of out of high school, but what led you to entrepreneurship and what started your work career?
Yeah, I mean, what started was the whole working at a convenience store. I worked at Circle K back in the day, so learned a bunch of different behaviors there. I got early into my professional career. I started with sales, so I was at Circuit City, but if that wants to date me a little bit, I was a commission only way back in the day before they went bankrupt, and then I moved to Highline Car Sales. Then I went to Cintas, which is actually prior to that, Enterprise Rental Car. Then Cintas, and then just kept elevating my sales career. And so what the question that people always ask me, which you just did, was what made me get into entrepreneurship. And I think part of it, to be honest, was I've always utilized people, good or bad, as guinea pigs in my life, and not in the sense of putting them in a position to then leverage that knowledge, but I see people make certain decisions in life, and so I say, not go in that direction, let me go this direction, right? And frankly, one of them was my father. He worked extraordinarily hard his entire life. I don't think made more than 110 grand a year. Mind you, we've been retired for 15 years, but it still wasn't a ton of money, especially in San Diego. And then I just had a lot of friends, family like that too, and I just said, I don't want to work this long to then hope that my golden years are this long. I think that's kind of a sham, to be completely honest with you. I think that's the way the rat wheel works in this world, and I don't agree that that's the way life should be lived for me.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's a lot of what, I don't know if you call it an American dream. That's just necessarily, that's what a lot of people do.
Of course.
They work 20 to 30 years at a stable job that they feel they like the paycheck, and then they retire. And that's it. It's
scary because then, I won't get too much into it today because it's probably not the right platform for it, but I have a family with a lot of addiction and issues, health issues, including my wife's family. And so these golden years that they call it, which are typically the ages of 55, 60 through 80 or 70, frankly, because as you get into the 70s, you can't really like do as much as you would do, is to me is almost like a gamble, right? And I rather have control of my life as much as I can, right? Control the controllables. And I wasn't going to be willing to risk, like some of my family, not being able to live the golden years in the way they thought they could because I wanted to get stuck in that rat wheel. So because of that, and the fact that I was always kind of the hardest working guy in the room. I remember one year at Cintas specifically, I'll never forget it. A number of times I'd be cold calling, which is door-to-door sales, selling uniforms and mats and towels and all that. Now, 6 o'clock on a Friday night, everybody else is fucking drinking and screwing around. And that was the best time to sell, in my opinion, because Susie, the front desk girl, left. Guess who was still at the office? The entrepreneur. And I got a couple of big sales out of that. But then there was a number of times where I'd call my boss and say, hey, I need an approval for ABC. Guess what my boss didn't do? Pick up the phone. And I'm like, this is not the way this should work, right? And so even though I made good money, there's just limiting factors for me to continue to grow in the way I wanted to, because the people that each job I had, my superiors, seemed to get lazier or more lethargic. And so I said, I need to write my own path, and the only way to do that is become an entrepreneur. And so the opportunity came about with Green Guard. We bought a $1,000 machine from the University of Oregon that was used. started scrubbing floors and cleaning kitchens. It was a very, very slow first couple years. I moonlighted, so I was still in high-level sales in that environment, playing the night and day game. And then picked the specific service up called kitchen exhaust cleaning. The company's now called Kitchen Guard. And the second we did that, we just took off.
That's pretty cool. So, it sounds like we had a similar, I guess you start to our career.
Sure.
I would go work for a company. I was always good at sales. I sold surfboards, snowboards, like in sports. And then I go, wow, there's not a lot of money in sports. So now I'm going to go into, I did leasing equipment, like tractors and things. And so I found for me, being driven, you take what you can get, you learn, you get trained, but then there's a limit you reach at the company. And you go, wow, there's nowhere else I can go. So I would find myself moving on to a better opportunity. And it sounds like you did the same thing.
You're just building skill sets. That's the whole goal. Even when I was in my mid-20s, I was making, a couple $100,000 a year, which was 20 years ago. So that's quite a bit of money. But I also knew that wasn't where I wanted to go. And I also knew that the ability for me to learn at that job was essentially tapped. You could continue to learn super nuanced things, but I could learn to be even more diligent when it comes to veterinary diagnostics. But I knew what I needed to know, and it wasn't something I was going to carry with me the rest of my life. So I felt like I was capped, right? And I knew how much I knew about uniforms and towels and inventory and the things that Cintas taught me. So I was capped, right? And so I was just basically, I had a tool belt on, and I had these skill sets, i.e. these tools. I put them in the tool belt, and I said, okay, well, I know how to use this hammer now. I've used it 1,000 times. I need to go build a new skill set. I put a new tool in the tool belt, and once I did that, that made the entrepreneurial journey, although still very difficult. At least you had some ability to at least know where you were going and have some thought process versus being blind to it.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes certain people stand out against the crowd, is that people like us are willing to take a risk and change companies. Yep. Or change into entrepreneurship. I kind of balance a little bit of both. As a contract pilot, I'm still an entrepreneur. I have to find the work. I have to bring more value. Before this podcast, I'm working on documents and passes and things for a trip on Monday. Yep. So it's not just the days I fly, and then it's, you take the risk, but you also take the risk of, hey, I'm putting tools on my belt. And then you're pretty much like a general businessman, right? Where your skills, because you went from kitchen guard to now doing Section 8 on a high level of real estate. So let's get into, how long did you operate kitchen guard? Because you basically sold it recently in the last couple of years, right?
Yeah, so Green Guard, now called Kitchen Guard, operated for almost 15 years. Dakota and I talk about this all the time. I think you'll find this analogy if you haven't already heard it from us. There's levels to the game. There's levels to your acumen as an entrepreneur if you want to utilize this as like a frame. And you can be a 1 through 10 entrepreneur, and you can be a 1 through 10 business opportunity. Kitchen Guard, for me, after 15 years, and a lot of it was due to me, it was probably a level 6 or 7 opportunity. For these franchisees that we're selling to, it's a significantly higher because their learning curve is going to be 1,000 times faster than mine was, right? And plus I was, I don't want to say burnt out, but just not as intrinsically motivated to continue to grow the business, with my house on the line and all the things, right? And so, but I feel like I'm a higher level entrepreneur. I'm not going to say a 10 or 9, but I'm, whatever you want to rank me. And so I wasn't playing the highest level game that I could play. I think real estate, for me and with the position I'm in now, is a significantly higher level game for legacy and generational wealth and all the things that people talk about, which is why I made that decision to... And also, frankly, I was in the stage of my life, and you and I have talked about a lot of this off camera, but you're going through this right now, and you're making, wanting to make the transition, but trading your time for money, you have to do for a certain period of time. You're doing that as a contract pilot, right? I did that for Kitchen Guard for way too fucking long. Mind you, it paid off well, right? Now I'm trying to trade my time by buying homes and getting semi-passive income or trade my money for time, right? And when you have that ability to do that, you do play the infinite game, which we've talked about, which is doing what you want with whom you want and when you want, right? And so it's an incredibly powerful thing to think about, but you got to just have all those tools, and then you got to execute with those tools appropriately. And I know you're on that stage too. So that's the reason why I made those decisions, is I didn't want to live that rat wheel life. So I guess that's kind of conceptually what I was trying to accomplish is, especially I waited a long time to have our child, which was somewhat by design. And thus far, it's working out well, because now that allowed me, with a very, very patient woman by my side, Ashley, to be able to basically just go absolutely ham for many, many years without having there to be too much detriment to having a child, right? And that time exchange, which I know you go through. So it's that's kind of the concept of what I was trying to accomplish. And thus far, although there's plenty of challenges in life, it's working out quite well.
So what led you to the decision to sell Kitchen Guard?
I tried to sell it before COVID. That didn't work out well. One, because I tried to sell it myself without an investment banker. Two, COVID happened. Thank God. I sold it for 40% more than I got offers for pre-COVID, so it's pretty awesome. But to answer your question, it was predominantly for, again, the fact that I had a couple SBA loans. Cash flow was always a challenge, not like significant challenge, but like it wasn't like we had a couple $1 million in the bank type of thing at any given time. And I just wasn't as motivated to grow the business past $6, $7, $8 million a year in revenue. I'm like, it was a great lifestyle business. I had bought the plane off of it, did all these things, right? But I wasn't like just a hard charger like I was previously, right? And so although the business was growing, and I felt like I was doing a disservice to my employees that worked their asses off for many years, and I also knew that it was worth, potentially 8 figures. And so that ability to make millions of dollars would allow me to then progress towards the next thought process of my life, which I already had inherently reverse engineered or mapped out. And so I just felt like it was a good time to consider the opportunity.
Yeah, and it seems like, I think that's a good analogy too, where you did it for 15 years, you didn't excite you anymore. Mm-hmm. And I don't know the business, but it seems like it's such a service business where it doesn't necessarily grow assets. It's you service, you charge for a fee for the service, and you get paid.
Correct.
Whereas in real estate, you're holding on an asset that really grows by itself.
Yeah, not to pivot too hard, but real estate has kind of a four-headed monster that we always talk about. We talk about cash on cash or cash return if you're an investment, especially Section 8 because it's guaranteed by the government, et cetera, et cetera. You get your debt pay down, which is just an equity split, right? You know this. For people that don't know real estate as well, you buy a home for a certain price. Every payment you make, there's a portion of the principal that gets paid down, so then you gain more equity. You get appreciation, which is separate to debt pay down. So every year there's generally in real estate, based on where we're at, the home increases. So a lot of the homes we're buying in Detroit now it's been in a 7% appreciation market for the last 8 years in Detroit, which is pretty incredible. Mind you, they got absolutely hammered back in 08, 09. And then the last one is if you can claim rep status, which I'm sure most people that are in real estate know, there's a significant tax savings for any potential tax burden or that you have. And when you make enough money, your typical capitalized or marginal tax rate is in the mid-30s. So when you look at that and you can save, even through a cost seg report, and you can save 30% on taxes, now your returns are 50, 60%. And most people just don't conceptualize that properly, and there's some real value there. Right?
And I think a lot of people, they even whether they own a business or they're not, everybody's trying to save in taxes through the IRS code. And it's like, hey, what can I write off? There's a large difference between real estate write-offs that actually you can depreciate it and get the cost seg, but then the property value still goes up. Where if you own a service business and you're buying vehicles, you're still spending the money, but the vehicle's actually depreciating, which is also not good. So the real estate is like the double winner when it comes to bonus depreciation or anything like that. And that's one of the things I like to educate listeners on.
Yeah, and I think owning the asset too. A big piece of my play here is, maybe this will pivot the conversation a little bit because we'll talk about family, but I have one daughter, Peyton, as you know, almost 6. And there's a great opportunity for me once I'm I think 40 or 50 homes at this point, 48 or something. And I'll probably be yielding close to 100 by early to mid next year. And for everybody, so I'm not trying to big ego here. Most of these homes are $60,000 to $80,000, so let's not assume they're $1 million homes, right? But I constantly one of the ways my brain thinks is I can look in the future and really feel and envision what it may look like based on the efforts that I'm putting forth today. And I do a relatively good job at sharing that with my wife. We try to do date nights every Thursday, and I think that's partly why every relationship has their issues. We're 15 years in married, 18 years together. We have the ability to be synergistic when it comes to that. And so part of this envisionment for me is the ability, and I'll explain why, to potentially, not guarantee, offer a pretty large portfolio for my daughter in 15, 20 years, 30 years that'll be worth, $30 million. And then that, in theory, would be generational. She can pass on to her kids. Now, the big giant asterisk here, big giant one, is that that inherently can be very dangerous if you give it to your children with the wrong intention and the wrong frame. And so I'm very focused on ensuring that she's a good human with good values. She's 6, but that's a very critical part of their lives. She's respectful. She'll start having respect for money. She'll understand that as a conduit, not a direct relation to fulfillment and happiness, and all the things that we carry as a family. And if she doesn't have some of those values, there's no fucking chance I'm giving her I just won't do it, right?
Yeah.
Because it'll ruin her. And that is an extremely sharp double-edged sword. And so it's a lot more responsibility. Even talking about it gives me goosebumps, but it's also an amazing opportunity to even have that as an option. And so that is what I continue to see is like, my legacy is leaving a large impact on people. You know that. I do a lot of motivational crap, and I really kind of hone in on people and try to improve them. In fact, my personal assistant, I had a pretty hard conversation with him this morning about some things, and I really enjoy those. And so maybe she wants to leave, and Kitchen Guard has 100 franchises now that have thousands of employees. And I started it. It's incredible, right? So that's my impact on the world, and there's a lot more to that. But what is my daughter's? Well, it's her choice to make that decision. It could be just her family, or it could be significantly larger, but she needs to be able to understand what that looks like. And when that all happens, I can only do so much, right? Then there's an opportunity for her to have a lot of wealth so that she can then really focus on legacy and impact.
Yeah, and making her choice on how she wants to impact the world. Like I want my kids to get into real estate, but that doesn't mean they will.
Yeah, maybe they
but
don't
if
want
I
to.
build the portfolio, whether it's for them or not, right, it'll get passed down, same as you. For me, like in my will and my trust, I have, it's a successor, but whatever the person in charge of my trust is a good friend of mine.
Yep.
Yeah, the trustee. I know, like, if I die at any time, he will make business and financial decisions, not emotional.
Yep.
So my parents aren't involved, my girlfriend's not involved. They're the ones, and my girlfriend and my kids are the ones that actually get everything.
Yeah.
But it's all based on, like,
Yeah,
I don't want someone
non-emotional basis,
Yeah, not
yeah.
emotional. So I don't want someone to go, ooh, I'm going to sell the warehouses.
Yep.
Hold on, those are going to make millions of dollars over the next 5 years.
Yep.
I want to maybe take some disbursements or a cash out refi. So I do think it's important, like you said, where we have young kids together, right? Like similar ages, where I have a placeholder in the middle where my kid ain't just going to get the portfolio if I'm gone at 18, you know?
That's a good point. We didn't do that, but what we did is we only allocated, I have to go look at it because our trust, we need to change it because I've had so much more assets, significantly more assets that need to be applied to it. But it was something like she has to either make a certain amount of money and or retain a job. And it wasn't like some exorbitant amount of money because listen, if she wants to be a fucking librarian and that makes her happy, great. I'm going to tell her what that might look like on the backside of the rat wheel, right? Or somebody else will, but she's not going to yield millions all at once. It's going to be a payout over 20 years or something, right? So she has to still be able to work to live. And that'll change as she evolves as a young woman. But as it sits today, there's no that she obviously even if she's 17 or 18, you don't give somebody millions of dollars doing that, right?
Yeah, because we know. I mean, look back at yourself at 17, 18,
Yeah.
even early 20s.
Yeah.
I was like getting credit cards, didn't know anything about credit cards, buying dirt bikes.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I just got into credit card debt. And
Look
it's
at
bad.
professional athletes.
There you go.
The majority of them go bankrupt, right? What are you doing for your family to drive home those values? Since you're gonna have, you already have a decent amount of assets, you're gonna continue to grow it. But how are you? Are you concerned with that output of giving them those, or what?
So yes and no, and that's a great question because it's something I think that I not necessarily battle, but I think it's hard as a parent when. Here's an example. My dad had me at 20. We just had no money.
Yep.
It didn't matter. They were dropped out of college, had me, we're working at the grocery store, kind of like what we did at 20s, right? So my dad had energy and we go to the beach and we had all this fun. So I had a fun, young upbringing.
Yep.
And my dad didn't really start making good money until later on in life. Where I'm the opposite. I was making pretty good money when I had kids late.
Yep.
And now that I'm building it, I think there's a fine line of you got to be careful not to spoil your kids, meaning give them everything.
Yep.
For example, here's a funny example this week. My kid didn't get a cupcake on the weekend at a birthday party. They all got eaten. So my girlfriend bought him one on Monday.
Oh.
Well, he's had a rough week and not being a very good kid to his brother and this and that. So he hasn't had his iPad and he hasn't had his cupcake. And it may sound funny for certain parents. So when he's fighting with his 1-year-old brother, beating him up for no reason and the kids are crying, some parents would just give the iPad and go, hey, I'm just stressed out after work. We don't do that.
Yeah.
We go to the park and I wore him out yesterday and then I go do something else. So it's it's a fine line of trying to be the right parent and making the right decisions. as growing up, like you said, even though my kid's 4.5, he's smart. He knows.
Yeah.
He knows right and wrong.
Yeah.
So you can't reward him even the small thing like watching an iPad.
I agree with you 100%.
So he knows, hey, dad works very hard. He builds real estate. He makes money. He likes to tell people we're rich, which we're definitely not. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, okay, we got a couple cars, whatever. Yeah. But I think for me, it's a lot of teaching them value of doing chores as he gets older. Here's how you get a couple dollars and, and go, this is how you can buy a toy. You got to save up some, So I think instilling the things from the get-go.
Yeah, like showing respect to the money, respect to the work, right? And I like that. I have a funny story about that. The other day, we were flying my wife on a girls' trip with the kids. Although the other woman had a couple boys, but like adult women's trip to Havasu. She does every year with her friend. And Ashley came home that day and said, hey, do you know what Peyton said to the PE teacher today? I'm like, no. She goes, and her best friend happens to teach at the school too. She goes, Amanda and mommy are going to Havasu. And she goes, okay, cool. Are you going to have fun then? She goes, yeah, Amanda has to drive, but we get to fly our plane. And I'm like, So I pulled her aside, put her on my lap, and I said, I need to talk to you about something. And long story short, I said, it is not your plane. You will never say that again. It is mommy and daddy's plane. Period. We love you this much, because she likes to do and we always love you, and we'll put you in our plane, but it's our plane. You are not allowed to talk about mommy and daddy's money or mommy and daddy's possessions ever unless you ask us. You didn't earn that. I earned that. Do not ever do that again. I was really direct with her, and she's really, really good kid. So when I get like that with her, she just lost it, crying, and then apologized afterwards. And I'm like, first of all, and I had to explain to her what ego meant. And she's five, she doesn't get it, right? And that's bragging, and that's not, Amanda's family works very hard too. And so, but it's really important for her to understand that's what's mine is not hers, right? And it can be, like we just talked about, but it's a choice that I have to make. And so I'm already checking those things with her, which is interesting because, similar to your kid, I was saying, mommy, daddy's rich. It's like, you just don't understand, right, how that works. So.
Yeah, I think it's a cool story, because with my kid, what he does, he'll for a while he was ordering food and not eating it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is like $15 chicken nuggets in Maui, like 5 meals in a row. And I'm like, that's $100. Yeah. Like, I'm getting frustrated. Yeah. Like, he's just going to eat off of my plate now. And so I kind of told him, I go, look, it's a kid, right? They do that, but it's not like, you can't let that slide all the time. No. And so I said, look, daddy has to go to work to make that money. So now I have to go to work to pay for all the food you
and not
ordered.
See you, yeah.
And he goes, what? And I go, I have to go flying when we get home. So they airlined, because I was on a trip, so they airlined home on their airline by themselves. Daddy has to go fly the jet, to make money to pay for chicken nuggets and all that. So even though it's you're not, we don't spank him. We don't say, we don't get really mad, but it's like, dude, you got to eat. There's no dessert. It's just the normal stuff. But I tell him now, I have to work, go fly airplanes away from you guys to go make money to pay for whatever we're doing, And so for me, it's kind of implemented where it's simple. They're not punished, but you're teaching them, I have to leave to go to work. I don't care if you work from home, the office, if you're not with your kid, you have to leave them to go work to make money to pay for whatever. Yeah. So that's something I'm doing. And another funny little story kind of on your comment, I think the other day, I said something about we're poor. I think he asked for why don't we have a boat like grandpa's or something? Yeah. And I go, we're going to get one in a couple of years. I have a goal in 2 to 3 years. And I'm like, daddy's poor right now. Yeah. And then my girlfriend looks at me like, don't say that. And I go, oh yeah, he, pulling up in your Range Rover, your BMW, or all that. Like, we're not poor. Daddy's just not. Daddy's got a bunch of real estate going on. I got no extra money. Right?
Cash flow has a lot to do with it. Right?
Yeah. So I go, okay, I shouldn't say those things either. Like, he said we're rich, and I go, we're rich in love, and
exactly.
You get to go to Hawaii 3 times a year, and all that stuff that I didn't do growing up. So I think parenting's hard. I think it's the hardest thing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know about for you. As much as I love my kids, I need a break.
Yep.
And then at the same time, like when it's too much of a break, I'm like, oh my God, I just want my kids.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
So,
but after a couple of days of not seeing them, my wife and I have a pretty good role delineation. I don't see you see your kids more than I do, but when I see Peyton, I'm very intentional. I'm like, never. I don't watch TV with her. It's not who I am and how our family relationship is. It's just not the dynamic, right? But when I'm with her, we're having fun wrestling, doing the things, and so it works out pretty well overall. But I think every family has the different uniquenesses associated with the family. It's just a matter of if it fits the family mold and it's effective enough for the child's growth and confidence and all
and
the
I
things.
find like so many of my friends are, parents, right? And then the ones that aren't. And I'm like, hey, you guys, if you don't have kids, I have friends that are my age, like wanting to have kids. I go, just remember, don't listen to what everybody tells you. You lose a lot of free time if you want to be a good parent. Mm-hmm. Like it's, where I gave up a lot of the fun stuff I used to do and I'm okay with it. Like instead of me going to have fun on a guy's trip, I'm like, no. I was gone a week, so I'm going to go hang out with my kids. And I think it's just such a different, I love being a dad. It's probably my favorite thing. I mean, really, like we can talk about having fun and I'm driven for business and I love doing deals and creating things and mentoring people. All that's good stuff. So it's so hard, I think, to be an entrepreneur, be driven to make money for generational wealth and give back and be a dad. It's a
balance for sure. And you got to have enough self-awareness to know if there's never a perfect balance. It's almost like a slight teeter-totter. You just don't want these big swings, right? So I just look at like, how are you constantly doing this? And a lot of that's through communication with your significant other, right? In our case, our wives. And so I think if you don't have that, that's where it can be problematic because that alignment is critically important because children are very aware too of the surroundings. They just don't verbalize it as clearly as an adult does. So if the relationship's strained or if there's, they can tell that. They don't necessarily verbalize it, but they can tell it, right? And so I think it's very important that alignment is there. And a lot of that's due to, I think, relationships, not to get way off tangent, people really struggle with dating their wife or husband.
Yeah, it's true. It gets busy. It's hard to carve time out.
Yeah.
It is.
But my argument to that is what else is more important because that alignment drives the behavior between all the culture and the environment that the child's raised in, right? And so it's similar, like you saying, instead of going to your friend's bachelor party you stay with your kids, this philosophically the same thing has to happen. Instead of hanging out with your kids, you should probably date your wife because at the end of the day, she's the one that's going to be with you the rest of your life. Your kids are going to be out of the house at some point.
Yep.
And then are you going to have a roommate or are you going to have a lover?
That's a hard part.
Yeah.
I mean, we fall victim to that because we're both so busy. And kind of like what you touched on, your family has a goal. And what I found for me is I started letting my girlfriend in who is not an entrepreneur. She'll know that. She says that. She worked a job for 15 years. So did her parents, like 30 years. They saved their money. They went on vacation. They had a great life. Yep. And I go, that's just not me. Yeah. Like, it's not, there's more to life, right? And my girlfriend was laid off after 15 years. She was super mad. Yep. And I get it. The company, it's understandable. And I said, hey, like, why don't you just let me work like more or a little bit harder or whatever? And you take care of the house and the family. That's a harder job in my opinion. For sure. I don't think I could do it.
Emotionally, for sure.
I don't think I could do it, and so it's worked out great where she's not stressed to work. Mm-hmm. She might get a little overwhelmed by the kids, which I do too. Yeah. So I'm like, let me give you a break. You go get your nails done or whatever you need to do. But it's everybody has a different family dynamic. Yeah. And you got to do what's best for you. But I mean, we don't go on too many dates. We do more family stuff. Yeah. But hopefully as our 1-year-old gets a little bit older, now he's at the age where my dad can kind of watch him for 2 hours without...
And your dad won't go crazy.
Yeah. So we're getting to the better ages. But good. Let's jump back into some real estate. So you sold Kitchen Guard a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. You made an exit and you started doing real estate in Section 8. Mm-hmm. And why did you choose Section 8 investing?
The longer story, but I'll make it short, is that I had a pretty significant tax bill, a couple $1 million. And when I sold Kitchen Guard, I did a pretty poor job at tax planning pre-sale. And the reason why that takes a couple of years, frankly, when you're talking about millions of dollars. So I bought, at the end of 2023, I bought like 40 Model 3 Teslas and a couple other EVs, and I got that giant EV tax credit. I did something called a charitable bank, which I won't get too much into here. That saved me quite a bit of money in taxes. And then I also bought a Cirrus. And it goes to Palmer Aviation now and gets rented. And that all were investments to save on the taxes. But to your point specifically, the cars and the planes are depreciating assets. Although they saved me a lot of money in taxes, it was worth the justification. Then I got into short-term rentals. I had the wrong business partner, good person, poor executor. And so I had 6 or 7 of those. I still have them. I've turned those into long-term, but I just realized it's ironic. Lower income housing versus Airbnb. I'd much rather deal with lower income housing all day long because the fucking Karens and short-term rentals. I had one today. I was bitching. I just see the notes. I have somebody that does all guest communications for me, bitching about how the fridge wasn't cool enough. And 4 hours later, she goes, "Oh, I guess it did cool down." I'm like, "You probably put 500 bottles in there." Like just dumb shit like that where it's like, how did you become 40 and so you're not even aware how life works, right? And you see that so much with short-term rentals. So I got out of that and I said, I just need something more stable. I did a lot of research on Section 8. For people that don't know, Section 8's a subsidized housing program through the government. The government pays you. Yes, there's challenges. You buy older homes. You have potentially some tenant issues. I will tell you this, though. The tenant's term or tenure on average is 7.5 years. The average tenure for a renter like myself, because I rent, I don't like buying for the house I live in, is 2 to 3 years. Mm-hmm. So it's significantly more stable. And fair or not, and this, I don't like this part of it because of how I am politically, even though I don't push my political agenda on people. The purpose for Section 8, in my opinion, is for people to have a stepping stone to get out of it and elevate themselves. In this country, there's a lot of entitlement, and the majority of Section 8 people don't want to increase their wages because they have the golden ticket where their rent could be covered for the remainder of their life, and they'd rather just do that than elevate themselves, with a growth mindset. I'm not powerful enough, nor do I have the interest in fixing that. It's just not something that drives me. But it's good for the investors, right? Because every month on the 1st, the government wires us money, and there's no chasing down money, there's no non-payment, and there's none of that, right? Can there be damage to the house? Sure. The problem why there's not a lot, or the reason why there's not a lot, is because they can lose their voucher, the individual, and they'll never get it again. And most of these people in these states that we're buying these homes from wait years. So the problem is there's a voucher, and people think Section 8 housing is like a type of house. It's not. Your house can be a Section 8 house. My house can be a Section 8 house. All it means is it's qualified through the government. It's safe, windows open, doors open, all the things. And then once it passes that house can be now qualified to accept a voucher from an individual Joe Smith to then utilize for Section 8. The reason why people don't Section 8 a home like mine that's $3.5 million is because my rent is a little over $10,000 a month. And say if you were to buy that home, you'd be a $25,000 mortgage, right? Section 8 might pay $5,000. So clearly the investment is upside down.
Does make sense, yeah.
But when you're buying $60,000 to $100,000 homes, your mortgage is $400 to $700 a month. If you're getting a $1,200, $1,400 voucher, it flips it up on the other side of that, right? And so it makes sense. And I wouldn't advise people buying Section 8 if you're only going to buy 3 to 4 of them, 5 of them, because if you have 1 or 2 vacant, it becomes problematic from a cash flow standpoint. But if you can buy 10 plus, long term, not over a couple years, then it makes more sense because you're worried about 1 or 2 being vacant. The cash flow you're making on each home, I'm averaging about 21% cash flow on all my homes. That's before taxes and all the other things I talked about. If 1 or 2 falls off, I'm still yielding 15 to 18%, right? It's not a big deal, and so it's a scale thing. And unlike these bigger projects where you and I have went back and forth on it, all my eggs are on one basket. If I have 1 home burned down and I have 100 of them, it's going to suck, but it's not the end of the world, right? You have 1 big project fail, it can be very problematic, right? And so that to me, unless I'm extremely intelligent about that specific deal, I'm just not going to want to take the risk on that, right? So that's the reason I got into it. It doesn't mean I do some multi-Section 8 type stuff too. Haven't got into commercial. Probably will, at least to do the final version of Longevity Labs. But I know a ton of people that have commercial, and there's great appreciation in those, but generally the cash flow is not as good. So
yeah. What do most people misunderstand about Section 8? You think?
It's funny. Obviously I was doing hood cleaning for a long time. That's kind of a down and dirty, grimy business, and ironically now people associate Section 8 as down and dirty, right? You got bad tenants, they treat the houses like shit. And that's not necessarily the case. I mean, yes, you're going to have a couple that have issues, but we go in landlord-friendly states, you evict them, you put a couple grand in the house, it's rent-ready again. I mean, these houses are 800 to 1,000 square foot homes. I mean, how much damage can they really cause? I mean, yes, they could go tear out drywall and go extreme, but you have insurance for that. So most people just have this thing of it being kind of this negative moniker of underprivileged people that beat the shit out of houses and are a little bit rough around the edges, and there may or may not be some truth to that, but I have a property manager that deals with all that, and I just don't care. That's their issue, right? And they do yearly checks with pictures and all the things, and obviously they don't want to have the wrong tenant. They got to deal with it, right? And so I just think people, if they don't know how to delegate, they want to self-manage. Those are generally the people that have it. Because one of the guys that does content that Eric was here the other day with, I don't know if you met him. He has 18 of them, and he hit me up yesterday, and I want to go to this big project in Dallas, ironically enough, and he's having all these problems with Section 8. I'm like, let me guess, you self-manage? He goes, yeah, every morning I wake up with a problem. I said, well, you can't fucking wait 4 days to fix a toilet. Has to be today. Mm-hmm. And so it's like a lot of it's going to be a self-derived issue through the investor just not knowing how to manage business, financials, and so I delegate what I need to on those things so I don't have to deal with it. And I think that's predominantly the issue. Or people don't know how to vet. They don't do a ton of the homes that I buy are tenant occupied, and we'll get something called an estoppel to make sure that you've probably heard of that. So they're not lying about rent rolls and all that. But we also ask for due diligence. Do you have their credit check? Do you have their history of their of pay? Do you have income? Do you have criminal? I swear 8 out of 10 of them don't check that. And I'm like, I'm not going to mirror your problem. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to evict them if I'm buying it. Well,
so let's talk about that. What is the process? Like, what's the process of buying a Section 8 home? Really diving deep would be, how do you choose a Section 8 home? I know you're in Detroit,
yep.
But how do you look at what's out there on the market and go, this would be a good Section 8 home?
So one of my partners is extremely intelligent, and we use a ton of AI now. This actually started a few days ago. We did this manually before. We can underwrite a home in about 20 to 30 minutes before. Now we can do it in 45 seconds through AI. He pulls information from PropStream and Zillow and RentCast and Rent-A-Meter and a bunch of other tools. And we look at homes between 60 and 100,000. We have a ratio. It's usually 1.5 to 1.7, so annual rent divided by sale of the home. It has to meet that ratio, and then it's like, okay, there's a possibility we'll buy the home. We'll look at it. We'll run it through our AI software. It basically spits out good, better, best rents. Like, for example, Rent-O-Meter chooses, we say, within a 2-mile radius, preferably 1-mile radius, within 6 months of a home that has a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, or whatever the equivalent 3-1-2-1, whatever it is in that market. What are they rented for? And it'll tell you. And then what we do is we pull the 25th lowest percentile. So one of the ones I was looking at this morning was 14 homes in a 6-month time frame in a 1-mile radius rented for X with the average. We take the bottom 25% of that 14 homes and use that as our standard. So we're conservative. We've met with the city attorney. Detroit's so fucked up with how they do their property taxes. They do it summer and winter, and then it's uncapped for a year. It's really funky. So we figured out that formula. And so we just underwrite it in this pretty sophisticated performa we have, and if it meets certain cash on the performa, which is 20% or greater, we then get it under contract through a purchase agreement. And so we underwrite a couple thousand homes a month, and then obviously we're getting a ton of off market now because everybody's like, who are these guys from California? What the hell are they doing? So we're just getting homes after homes, right? And we just underwrite them, and then at that point, once they're under contract, we've recently changed this, but we're doing inspections and appraisals at the same time. A little more risk because you're putting costs in both. $1,000, and then at the same time we do inspections and appraisals. We get a general contractor that we know out there that's been out there for third generation. He quotes all of the deficiencies from the inspection report. We then go back and renegotiate for seller credit or repair credits, and or appraisal related shortcomings if it's it underappraises. And then at that point we either kill the deal, eat the $1,000, or move on for it, and we try to close it within 30 days or less. At that point, once it's been closed, we get the deed. If it's a tenant-occupied home, we've already told the housing authority to stop payments for the current owner. And then we go in, perform any repairs we need to perform if we choose to, or we'll do any deferred maintenance based on if there's a tenant and it's not needed. And then if it's not tenant-occupied, we'll get it to the property manager. They pre-market the home. We perform any repairs to get it rent-ready. We go find a voucher with a tenant we like. Then at that point we notify the housing authority. They come out anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks, perform inspection. Housing authorities are a giant pain in the ass. Are like DMV workers that want to just make your life hell. So most of the time they fail you the first time for, the outlet's not whatever. Something that's silly, right? So usually we'll push a general contractor to go out there with them on the inspection, say, can we just fix it on the spot? Half the time they're cool, half the time they're not. If not, they'll come out another week after the repairs. They approve the house, then the tenant moves in, and then off to the races.
So it sounds like you've got the system wired,
Yep.
but there's a lot of steps. And I know you have a lot of people on your team. I mean, you're here in San Diego, you have multiple partners, you got managers out there. Do you guys use software or an SOP? I mean, as a business, you're running a legit business,
Yep.
not a one-person
No,
show.
for sure, yeah.
So what, do you have a full SOP that everyone goes off?
Oh yeah, we have 190 steps is what it is now through Asana. Asana gets bled into Trello and Airtable. Again, this is Luke and his genius, right? This is where he comes in. I know software, but not to his level. And we run we have multiple transaction coordinators that manage these homes, get assigned to them, and then we have our lenders that already know us, pre-approved, and all that. We have our inspectors, and so it's just, and we have probably 100 SOPs.
So at what point, if Lou's the tech stack guy, at what point are you going to create your own software? Because that's kind of where a lot of companies are going. I'm buying land, right now, doing some land entitlement, meaning we buy land, we get the plans, get the permit, and then we're selling to developers, just as like a secondary to my developments. And then I went, wow, there needs to be software. And then 2 people have already built it because there was none.
Yep.
So I don't know any software in Section 8.
Yeah, I mean, like Tom Cruise or some of the big Section 8 guys have their own software. We've considered that. We probably won't go the software way when it comes to specifically transaction coordination, because our due diligence is way more hefty than our competitors. You know this. I looked it up on ChatGPT the other day and kind of challenged it a few times. It says like 72% of real estate transactions end up failing or doing much less than what the investor anticipated. And it's so funny because we get a lot of these sellers that are like telling us like, you guys are way more complicated and make this harder than everybody else. I'm like, oh, everybody else is a 72%. Fuck you. Like, we don't have that lack of success. Our track record's better. So go show me somebody else that has the track record we have from a return standpoint, or at least I can speak to myself, and then I'll listen to their process. So because of that, I don't know if people would want that, but our underwriting software we already have, and we are considering monetizing that, because underwriting a home in 45 seconds, nobody can do that. And so if we charge for that through investors or real estate agents or anything, I think we literally just got it done yesterday. And so we have our owners meetings with, drinks and food on Mondays. And we'll probably talk about monetization of that. We just don't want to derail this newer business by focusing on a product, and then it hinders the disposition of these homes we're doing. So
yeah, you want to have it as a supplement, so you'd almost need someone else outside that would focus on tech sales.
Yeah.
But I think there's a market there in all of these real estate niches, right? And I don't see too many in certain niches, right?
For sure.
Like flipping software, there's tons of it. There's all kinds of different things, but
you'll understand this. I think of software is very similar to, what time is it? I'm good. Is very similar to, real estate is very similar to aviation. It's very antiquated. The way they do things is fucking ridiculous. Like, it's just like, and people are going to hate me for saying this, but real estate agents, the majority of them are literally like order takers. They're miserable at negotiating. They're even worse at building a relationship with the seller. And all they do is get in the way.
I would agree. And I think a lot of agents that are listening, I know I have friends that are agents that listen, they would agree with you.
Yeah,
the ones that are good stand out and understand business.
Yeah.
But I think it's because it's a low barrier to entry.
Of course.
It used to be a test.
Yeah.
Now I think in California it's 3 classes and an exam. And that's it.
Well, then imagine if you had the person selling Section 8 homes, they're making $1,500 a sale.
Yeah. So
I kind of get it, but alternatively, like, their goal would be just to get the deal done as fast as possible. And if they know investors like us that have a proven track record, why wouldn't they just? And that's similar to aviation, right? Aviation has a challenge because it's just so antiquated. I mean, I don't even get how they charge so much for repairs but most of these A&P service centers don't make that much money.
Yeah.
In fact, I was looking at buying one a couple years ago, and he gave me his books, and I'm like, how
do you stay in business?
What? I just paid $14,000 to replace my exhaust on my Cirrus. Where'd that money go?
Yeah.
And it was predominantly just because there's so many hands in the bucket that want to touch the aviation part before he can actually charge for it.
Yeah. And the parts are just so overly priced.
Yeah, that's my point. It's just because it had to be approved by Cirrus, and it had to be approved by FAA, and it had to be approved by what other jurisdiction, right? And so, but again, there's shitty software when it comes to aviation too, right? Even from Flight Aware or whatever that, not Flight Aware, but Flight Schedule Pro. It's not all that world, and it's just none of it's very good.
Yeah,
so,
I think the best tech that I've ever seen in aviation is ForeFlight.
Yeah, by
it's
far.
the only one,
Yep.
and it's funny because I fly for one of the guys that helped create it.
Oh, really?
And he goes, he got too busy as a software engineer.
They just sold it, right?
And so he and his buddy Nick, they sold it to Boeing.
Yeah, Jet sold it to Boeing.
Yep.
Yeah.
So ForeFlight is the only one. Like Flight Aware is cool. You can track your airline,
Yeah, but it's still
but it's
basic,
not
yeah.
like it's really still old. But I mean, tech in anything is taken over. It's been taken over for years,
Yep.
right? Since 2000 or
Yep.
whatever. And there's so many billionaires made in tech, but it's also made people's lives easier. In flying, I use ForeFlight all the time.
I use it every
day.
day.
It's such a good tool. And I like that they have new things coming out like every week.
I mean,
just little fixes.
I love some of the stuff they're doing now. I use it. Luckily, my plane is a G1000, so it has a majority of that already. But when it comes to flight planning and looking at the briefings and all that stuff on flights, I mean, I use it. That's all I use, right? And I use that with a couple other tools, and especially with icing, because your jets, you don't have to be concerned about that. Mine, I have fluid, and I have to be prepared for it and all that, right? But
yeah, and it's just different info. I'm looking at weather and where is it going to be. I mean, thunderstorms at 45,000 feet will kill you.
Yeah.
So I still use it like you do. I may not look at icing reports.
Yeah.
But I look at a lot of the weather stuff is big, or NOTAMs, like when runways are closed.
Yep.
It's right there on ForeFlight.
Yeah.
We used to have to call in to do a weather briefing on a 1-800 number.
It'll even do like big red exclamation marks and stuff now. So like you can't fuck it up unless you're really being ignorant, right?
Yeah.
And it's not. I think I pay like $800 a year for it, or $900 a year. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not cheap, but it's well worth the output of what you can get for it.
Yeah,
so.
100%. So talking about aviation, so you own a Cirrus, you love flying. What got you into flying?
I do. I'm going to do one message real quick because I'm going to be late to this thing, which is okay.
Yeah, we can wrap it up in like the next 10 if you want.
Yeah. Let me just tell them.
That'll be pretty much an hour and about 10 minutes.
Okay. Where are we? Transaction coordinator. Oh, it's probably up here. Yeah. I'll be available in about 10 to 15 for the call. So I did a lot of public speaking when I owned Green Guard, now Kitchen Guard, in colleges. One of the things that gives me a lot of happiness and pride is being around younger people and influencing them. Although it's a love-hate for a lot of the people that are close to me because I push people to the limits, like pretty far, to sometimes where they like back off because I push them too hard, right? So when I spoke a lot, I always socialized my goals. I've done it for a very, very long time, to a point where I laminated sheets and I put them on my nightstand, everywhere. And, I had it on my desktop, and I saw it for many, many years. And one of them was make $500,000 by the certain per year, retire by a certain age, or choose to work kind of scenario. I want to open a no-kill dog shelter, which I haven't hit yet, but it's definitely a big goal, and we've done definitely some work on it. And then the last one was buy a jet membership or become a pilot. I always thought it'd be cool. I think it was more of an ego-driven thing initially, 20 years ago, and COVID hit, and I had to shut down Green Guard, effectively shut it down because of our lovely governor and COVID and all the things. And then I owned 2 gyms, had to shut those down. And then the way my brain works, I'm kind of bored. I learned to sell foggers and disinfectant online, and I made like $1 million in 9 months. And I'm bored, and I'm 11 months away from this 40th birthday party, or maybe it was 39th. And I said I better commit to all this shit I've been saying for the last 10 years, and so speaking at colleges and social media, and that was really the only one that I hadn't really started on. And so I got the extra money from this online sales during COVID, and so I said I should probably learn to do it. I wanted a safe plane, and I was ignorant. I wasn't, nowhere close to where you were, and so I said, well, Cirrus is the one that's the safest. Typical response, and although much more expensive, I learned here at Palomar Aviation, where my second plane is now for schooling, and just went ham 3 days a week, 4 to 6 hour sessions, a bunch of groundwork. And I just had to commit to myself that I was going to meet this goal, so I didn't be that guy that would say I'm going to have my goals and then not meet it, right? Because I'm a big man of my own word, and I feel like part of my legacy is my name and the impact I leave on people. And so that was the main purpose behind it, and then I just went absolutely ham on it and got it done relatively quickly in 6 months or less. And I did it at 100 hours too, by the way. I should have done it sooner, but that's probably not the point of the conversation today. And now I'm at 700 hours, and I'm almost done with my helicopter license now too. And I'm not nearly as scared of aviation now that you understand it a lot more, right? And It's been an incredible journey, and people like you know, as a pilot, it just opens up opportunity. And it's one way to buy time too.
It's such a different world. That's what I tell
Yeah.
people. I have a lot of friends that I've connected with, like real estate guys, business owners, that reach out to me and go, hey, I'm finally making some money. I've always wanted to be a pilot.
Yep.
How do I do it? And I'm like, well, tell me how much free time you have and how do you want to? Because there's one route of you have 1 to 2 days a week for like free to go fly. It's going to take you quite a while.
Yep.
And there is studying involved. It's not like a get in the car and go drive.
Yeah.
And so I tell people, I go, the best bet is like, can you take 4 days a week off your business and let your team run the show?
Yeah.
You can be done in 4 weeks if you commit like all day long.
Yeah.
I go, because I had to do that for a little bit. And it's cool that you flew like 3 days a week, multiple sessions. Flying is repetition and it's in your brain, you know, and you got to see it weekly because it's like
it's a muscle memory. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like if you don't lift all the time, especially flying, and obviously the downside of flying is death. So you can't, and obviously you have a CFI, but most of these CFIs are young. Not to say they're not good pilots, but like their general decision making in life is nowhere to where ours was. Now flying, you have to trust them, but it's one of those scenarios you still have to be on point, because if you do make a really bad mistake, the CFI might not come back from it.
And once they release you solo, you're out there doing all the skills by yourself.
Yep.
You have to, you know.
And so it's been incredible. I went to Coeur d'Alene last weekend flying. I actually, a funny story about that. People sit there and say, well, isn't your plane slower? Yeah, it's probably about half as slow as, but, and you're the exception, but commercial, you get to the airport an hour early, and then you're probably not taking off on Southwest or whatever for another 30 minutes after you've got on the plane, right? 20 minutes based on how busy the tarmac and the lineup is. And so Mikey left Detroit. No, that's not true. Austin, 30 minutes before us on a Delta flight. He had a layover in Phoenix, I think, and then he had a 30-minute delay or something on Phoenix. Long story short, we took off. We landed once, got lunch in the middle of this small little town, and got back an hour and a half before he got back.
Yeah, it's wild because I look at that. Like I have a Baron that my friend I can use, you know, in Orange County, and I flew the family on Southwest to Sacramento the other day, right? You leave your house, you drive 45 minutes, then you go to the parking lot, then you take the shuttle over, then you're there an hour early. So like it kind of takes 5 hours to get to Sacramento.
Yeah.
Well, we could drive 45 minutes to Orange County, hop in a Baron, and be in Sac 3 hours probably. Yeah. I don't know. I haven't flighted it.
And it's just easier. And for me, the airport's 3 minutes away from here.
Yep.
And so like we're going to Bakersfield on Sunday for dinner with some friends. Which people are like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
We're flying to Bakersfield, going to dinner, we're flying back, right? And Bakersfield's an hour and 10-minute flight. And we fly into Bakersfield, which I don't think is a commercial.
It might be, but it's not very many people fly there.
Yeah.
You know.
And so we're doing that. I'm bringing another pilot friend, Joel, with me, so I can have drinks at dinner, and then he'll fly me back. Plus, if there happens to be clouds and shit, right? And so, who gets to do that? And so I'm very blessed to be able to do that, but it just opens up an opportunity of a different life, like you said, and it makes it very unique. So
yeah, I mean, I love that we share the flying passion. I mean, I'm looking at buying a plane. I've kind of kept moving which plane I want. Do I want one to travel with? And then I realized I just want one that I can do kind of all of it with.
Cherokee 6.
Yeah, I'm looking at a Cessna 180, a tailwheel, to do some off-airport stuff. Like my buddies are doing it.
Is it hard to get insurance? I just asked if I could do off-airport landings through my new insurance carrier, and they said no.
In your airplane, because it's an expensive one, but these off-airport specific
they don't
airplanes,
care as much.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. But my friends are doing it. I've been watching YouTube like an addict lately just because of that. And it's like I watch the guys that do really well, and they're camping and they're taking their kids, and I'm like, all right, that's really cool. They're flying to Idaho near Coeur d'Alene and going like on riverbeds.
I want to do that with like a Carbon Cub.
It is cool. So my friends have Carbon Cubs and all kinds of different things.
That's something we'll probably end up getting after this helicopter, is a Carbon Cub.
There you go.
At some point, because man, I would love to like land and camp, and
they go slow. You can open the window.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's cool stuff. So I'll give you a guy that you should check out on YouTube, because he has a Legend Cub. It's almost the same thing. Yeah. But let's talk about, so you're also into luxury cars, because you got a few here at the office. What airplanes, I think, are the most luxury thing you can get, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
And it changes time and everything, right? What drew you to like your passion for cars?
I mean, I was into cars. I had old Mustangs and stuff when I was in high school. It was just a cool, sexy, again, ego-driven thing. You go fast, you know, room type stuff, right? But it more got me into the fact that I think I had a hard time. I was always the guy that didn't like even in college, for example, I don't want to get too off subject here. I had a teacher that didn't speak English well enough. I went to the dean and got pissed off because I'm paying for my own money, not my parents' money. And they said, well, just raise your hand and say you can't understand me. I'm like, cool. Say it again. Say it again. And even when I was in a corporate world, I was just always the guy that kind of like was a squeaky wheel because I didn't agree with things, and I professionally vocalized it. One of the things I've always vocalized is I don't want to play the game. I want to break the chain. And I've never said it in those exact words, but that's essentially what I mean. And so I didn't want to buy the cars just to be in the cool club. But then I finally, a few years ago, said, all right, you win. And I need to do this because, one, I like cars, but two, it gets me into specific rooms that I wouldn't be able to get into. And I will tell you, the rooms the McLaren and the Rolls Royce have got me into, it's dumb. I don't agree with it. I want to be very clear on that, but I also understand it's the world we live in, and I still don't like it, but it's the world we live in, where the second people show up to this space, it's instant credibility. They pull up Rolls Royces outside, come in, you got a Shelby Cobra, old F100 built out, and a McLaren inside, and they're like, what the fuck is going on here, right? And so that's partly what it is. I'm not like the driver like a lot of these guys. In fact, this car group I'm part of, Fast Lane Drive, I love. It's a group that you got to be part of if you have an exotic car group. The owner and I are friends. He just called me right before the show. And you just get in, and the people we're going up to Bakersfield with on Sunday, they're in that group. And so it just gets you in certain rooms, and you have a synergy with people because of the likeness of cars that then allows you to grow relationships either professionally or personally that you wouldn't have had the opportunity to do if you didn't have those cars.
Yeah, I think it's really cool because I see more and more of my friends as they become successful buying a sports car or a luxury car. I'm a car guy, but it's not my number one. I'm more of an airplane or boat guy that I can bring the whole family and friends on. Yep. But I tell you what, man, after doing the Porsche event up in LA and driving multiple different Porsches, I never really wanted a Porsche. I just didn't really care. Yep. And now I'm like, okay, I want the GT3. Like, the things are pretty sick where I can actually go like drive it pretty fast. So I like that.
The cornering of those things is outrageous.
So I may join someday when I get one of those here in the next couple years.
I mean, you would love it because the real estate and raising money and stuff makes it so much easier. So.
Cool. A couple last questions before we wrap it up. What's one splurge that you'll never regret? And then which one do you kind of regret maybe?
One I definitely would never regret is the plane. I mean, it's made my life so much more unique, and I'm incredibly happy with it. What I would regret, I don't really think that way, but if I were to say, it'd be a lot of like the trinkets, buying too many sunglasses, buying too many shoes. But again, it's not enough to like create enough pain threshold for me.
It doesn't make a pain threshold, but you go, man, I didn't need all that stuff.
Yeah, I have a lot of things.
Yeah, because I think about that for me lately. I collected too many cars. I've been spending too much money. For me, it's like I bought an off-road race car. I always wanted to do it my whole life. Yep. Never had money to do it. I was always going to races, helping others. And then I bought one. And it's like super cool. It's fast and all this. And then the second race out, we crashed.
Yep.
And literally this morning, we just took it out of the trailer after a year and a half.
Yep.
It's been like crashed.
Oh.
So now we're putting it back together, but I'm selling it. I'm going to put it back together and sell it because overall, it's not a money thing. It's more like my family can't enjoy it.
Yep.
It takes away time from my kids. Or if I get an airplane or a boat down in Oceanside, now the whole family, you're still spending money.
You want the experience.
And you want to reward yourself, but it's like, that's one for me that I regret. You know?
Yeah, so I think you're in a line that way. It's too many things. I got a couple boats I don't need, so I'm going to sell those. But it's like I bought a trailer that I never really use. So just stupid shit like that. But again, although I like nice things, I think I just want to maybe scale that back a bit to make it so it's not. Because there's also management and registration and...
It adds up. Insurance,
it's also mind share. It's like lives rent-free in your head all the time. And you're like, God, I want to deal with all this. Right?
So I'm going through that personally right now. I have 3 of my own vehicles. I'm selling all 3 and getting a new one.
Okay.
And I sold my boat. I'm rebuilding a jet ski engine that's been sitting for a year. And I'm like, let's make sure everything works and sell what we don't want.
Yeah, and
you
then
know,
be done with it,
you start collecting too much crap.
Yeah.
Then you're getting insurance bills. I'm like, I haven't driven that truck in a year. Why am I paying $1,000 a year? Like it just starts adding up. But how about this? A couple last questions. What does enough look like to you right now, and how has that changed?
Enough in regards to money or?
Yeah, like work. I mean, I think we're both people that will always work.
Yeah.
There's a difference between working too much and taking away from family and then slowing it down to where enough. So do you have a goal of where you're like, this is my goal, and then I can kind of do more of what I want?
I'm pretty much 80% there now. Like I probably work a little bit too much because we're starting up that, the consulting business for Section 8. But I've been to Detroit and Coeur d'Alene and Havasu, and we just got back from France, and so like I don't and I really enjoy the real estate world right now. So I think I'm basically there. I would suggest that probably have the business so I can maybe have a little bit slower day. I mean, I don't have to be here at 7. I work out at 9. I leave at 4 or 5 or 3, and then I spend a little bit more time with my daughter, when she gets older, because she'll have more things to do. It's probably where I'm at, but I'm pretty much there. And financially, 100 a month passive, which, we're getting close to that, would be, well, we're there, but it's not as passive as I like. So it's one of those scenarios that stop taking something active and move it to passive, right? That's where I need to be, but I mean, theoretically, that's going to happen in the next year or two. And I'm very happy with where I'm at now, because I can just, if I wanted to, I could leave tomorrow and go to Havasu. So it doesn't change anything for me, right? And so I'm pretty happy with how that's looking. Right now, I think a lot of what I'm trying to do is elevate other people too, and I have to be present for that, meaning working. And there's some value there as long as the balance is appropriate for my family.
Yeah. All right, 2 last questions. Our last question would be, I'd like to leave the listeners with your top 2 books, not one, but if you have 2 books that you could recommend that listeners, whether it's mindset or growth or business, what are 2 maybe that you really enjoy?
I'm going to flip the script and say podcasts that I'd listen to versus books.
That's fine too.
I think that's something I focus on. I've read 1 million books, but I'm big into longevity and health, and so you want to like this guy, but he's very dry. So Peter Attia is somebody that I listen to a lot, because he's not like the David Breckas of trying to sell.
He's kind of the OG of
He's
health.
the OG, and he's not like a over marketer like David Brecka, where he'll sell you fucking anything, right?
Yeah.
And I also like Huberman quite a bit too. So those are probably 2 of the guys I would recommend listening to. It's weird. Although I've read a lot of books, I don't generate a lot of what drives me is my own internal chip on my shoulder and desire for life. It's not necessarily the education from the books, right? Those almost reinforce thoughts I've already had. I just, and so I really focus on health and longevity, because I think the majority of people that get to my wealth or significantly more, the one thing they would pay for is to live longer, healthier. And so being educated on that, and at the forefront of it, I think is something that people need to spend time on doing. And again, that's my trauma, because of family and in-laws that don't have that. And so that those golden years or whatever are challenged, right? And so that's what I'd recommend for people to do is to really understand, if you go into stay in the rat wheel, which is okay, this world doesn't turn without people that want to just live that normalized life. You better make sure you're healthy when you're out of it.
Yeah, you hear too many stories of people working 30 years and they make it a year, if that.
And that's a whole different podcast about the identity around people, and it's too much driven around the profession and finances. But it's that just breaks, it just makes me, I have no words for it, because I can't relate to that.
Yeah.
And so I would encourage people to just listen to those 2, just listen to those 2 guys. Naveed too is pretty good. He does a lot of cool things. If people want to DM me, I don't watch TV at all. Like maybe 10 hours a year. I'm the social guy. I'm out every night meeting people, but I also do a ton when it comes to social media but I'm not generally the scroller. I'll do a little bit of it. I'm more of the DMer, messaging people, motivating people, challenging people, doing that type of thing. And I think for me, that's what drives that personal growth, which is why I recommend go learn. Have a growth mindset. Don't just stare at blank TV.
And learn from others in person. I mean, I'm a big podcaster, and I do audiobooks as well.
Yeah.
I'm not reading less on paper.
Yeah,
I like
so
the
am I.
audiobooks. Go for a walk, 4 miles. I can get a book done in 2 hours.
Yeah, my focus on books is just harder. I like it because the process is different. And I can play audiobooks or podcasts at 1.5.
That's exactly
and it's
what I
just
do.
the way it's just easier for me. So
Cool. Well, thanks for your time. Where can people find you if they want to get in touch and learn more about Section 8? Or
at Nate Leathers, 2 S's, so NateLeathers. You can DM me on that. I respond to my own DMs. So it's one of those scenarios where if you're interested in that, or motivation, or if you're interested in checking out Longevity Labs and you feel like it's something that you might synergistically link up with us, either from a leadership, motivation, or financial standpoint, we're more than happy to have people come in.
Cool. You guys heard it. Reach out to him on Instagram if you want to learn about Section 8 or longevity. And thanks for listening. We'll see you later.